Hi, this is Scott with eTrailer. Today we're taking a look at and installing the Demco Air Force One braking system on our 2025 Ford F-150. So we get asked a lot what you're going to need to get all set up for flat towing, and you're going to need a base plate, you're going to need a tow bar, you'll need safety cables, you'll need tow bar wiring, and some form of a braking system. Other than that, one of the things we do usually recommend is a charge line kit. What that's going to do for you is make sure your vehicle battery has charged once you get to your destination. That's going to allow your RV to trickle charge your battery through the system while you're cruising down the road with flat towing your vehicle. So if you're looking to get your F-150 set up to flat tow, this braking system is going to be one of the best out there that you're going to be able to get. If your motorhome has air brakes on it, this is going to have you all set up with everything you need to hook up your RV side and your vehicle side to get you all set up to keep you safe going down the road. This is going to be a proportional system, so however you push your brakes on your RV, that's going to translate back to your vehicle. So that's really nice because it's not going to wear down on your vehicle's brakes on either your RV or your truck. So it's going to hold up really well, and this is going to be a permanent setup. So when you want to go flat tow, all you have to do to set up your braking system is you just have to have your air right here. You can unplug your line and take your line off and put it away. When you're ready to go flat tow, all you have to do is plug that in and you're all set to go. So being truly proportional, anytime you push the brake on your RV, that's going to translate back to your vehicle. So say you have an emergency situation where you need to stop real quick and there's traffic coming up. This is going to act the same. If you push on your brake really hard, it's going to act the same way back there on the vehicle. So it's actually going to help you slow down your whole setup as you're going down the road. This setup's also going to come with an indicator light, and that's going to have a red LED that you'll be able to see from your RV's camera while you're driving down the road. So every time you hit the brakes, it's going to light up and you'll see that your brakes are functioning in your vehicle. About the only bad thing with this setup is one of the things I don't really like is how hard it is to see the red LEDs for our indicator. Now there are other options available. You can also get the Air Force One that has the wireless coach link included. That's a really nice option. You're going to be able to monitor your braking system from in the cab of your RV with just a little box that sits there, and you'll be able to see that really easy. And when it's sunny out, it's really hard to see these, especially if you don't have your camera just right, you can't really see it real well. So the wireless coach link is a good option. Another thing you can do if you already have this setup, you can get the wireless coach link separate as a standalone setup and then get your vehicle set up with that as long as you have your Air Force One already installed. Now, if I had an RV with air brake setup, this is definitely would be the brake system that I would go with for my truck and RV. It's a really good quality setup and it always works really well. Now, if you have any questions or comments about this setup for your F-150, you could always leave a comment down below, or if you already have it set up, let us know how you're using it. If you have any questions or comments, you can always get a hold of one of our experts here at eTrailer. Now, installation for this one can be a little bit tricky. You're going to be under your RV and working on your truck as well, so it can be a little bit daunting. If it's something you don't have time to do yourself, or you don't have the space to do it or the tools, you can always take a look at our dealer locator and get something done for you locally. If it's something you feel like tackling yourself, stick around, watch our video, and we'll help you get it installed. To start our installation of our braking system, we have our box put in place. Now, these can be a little tricky to find places to put these. So while we had our bumper off, I did a little looking around and decided that right behind our plate holder was a really good spot for that. And all I did is just drilled a hole through the plastic in the top mount of it, up through that, and then tied off to that with some wire ties through that. Then down below, there's a couple tabs that stick out of that, and it worked out really well because my box is actually just sitting on top of those. So I just pulled the box back, drilled a couple holes through that, and then tied off to that as well. Now that we have it mounted back here, we do have this bracket set up from our base plate kit, so we've decided it's just easier to get everything set up right here on the bench before we put our bumper in place. So what we did is we have our fitting for our air inlet that mounts to the bracket, and we went ahead and got that installed, and that allowed me to run my line short from the fitting itself over to my operating unit to the air in. Now after I did that, I got my wires here, and what we're going to do is one of these is going to go over to my black wire that comes out of my breakaway switch that I mounted on the bracket as well. So I'll make that connection here, and the other wire that comes off of my controller is going to go over to ground on the body after we get our bumper put back in place. Now what I want to do is take some line from my kit and get it put in place on my air out off of my operating unit. So what I want to do is make sure I have a good clean cut on my tube. You want it to be nice and flat across and clean. So what I'll do is I'll just run that back over to my fitting on my control unit. Push that in place. Got to push kind of hard. You'll feel it come to a stop. Now you can pull in and out. That's going to lock it in place. Anytime we make this connection with these, you want to make sure you get it bottomed out all the way so you can prevent leaks. One of the wires coming out of my box, I want to hook to the black wire that goes to my breakaway switch. So what I'm going to do is just get it figured out how much I want and just get some of that cut off. And I leave a little bit extra. That gives me something to tie off. Snip both those off, strip off both ends of my wire. Now I'll take a heat shrink butt connector, start that onto my wire and get that crimped in place. Make sure I have a good connection on that. Now this wire being a little thinner, what I can do is fold that over and run that into my butt connector and crimp that in place. Now I'll take my heat source and shrink up our wire. Now what we're looking for is to get most of the bubbles out of it. And we're looking for a little bit of that gel to come out the end. That's how we'll know we've made a good seal. So on our setup for our vehicle, we're not going to have any vacuum boost assist on our braking system at all. So with your box, if yours doesn't have that, you're going to have a way to plug up the ports on yours. So that way, if you just have electronic brakes, they have a way to plug it up. So with this one, you just cut off 2 inches of hose from the hose that they give you, and you're going to have a little plug that will go into the end. It's just a plastic plug that's going to block off this lower vacuum port. In that same bag, you're going to have a little cone-shaped rubber plug that's going to go into the exhaust port. Then you're going to follow that up with this acorn nut. Now I do recommend getting this part done before you get your box in place, just so you have room to do that. Since I'll be hooking up my ground wire that comes off of my control box out onto the body once I get the bumper installed, what I did is after I cut some of the black wire that came off of this, because we had quite a bit of extra that hangs off the back of our breakaway switch, I just took some black wire and extended that off so I have something to work with, because when we get this put back on, we're going to end up grounding this one, the black wire that comes off of our box, onto our body. Now we got our bumper all put back on. As you can see, we have our air inlet, we have our breakaway switch, and we have our plug installed as well. So everything turned out really good, so we'll show you where we got everything routed. So for our routing, after we had everything trimmed up, all of our lines and everything ran really well. We ran them out the side where we trimmed up for our base plate. We had to trim out a section so that came out of there real nice, and then we ran our line up and over, up to our driver's side up underneath of our hood. Now for our breakaway switch, our wires came out and they ended up going right up beside the frame and then up towards our passenger side where our battery goes. Now other than that, we can show you more of what we got done up above our vehicle underneath the hood. Now we came up beside the radiator and up over our air intake and over behind our air filter housing, hit our line behind there and then ran it down into the grommet into our firewall. And we had to poke a little hole in there and then just run our line through. And the nice thing is we also used our line as a fish wire to run crucial wires that we needed to finish it up to run in and out of our grommet. Now we can show you in the inside of our vehicle where our line ran to. Now you can see where we had it come through our grommet into the inside of our vehicle, then we ran it up over to our cylinder. For our wiring that we pulled through our grommet, we have our red wire and we have a white wire. Our white wire is just a ground wire that we had to run out because we couldn't find a suitable ground inside of our truck, so we ended up running out to a known factory ground underneath of our hood. Now for our red wire, that is a jumper wire that comes in our kit, and this just runs out to give us some length to run over to our battery. Now with that red wire, we have it running to the red wire that comes out of our indicator light that is mounted on our dash. That is going to supply power. Now we have our black wire. That black wire runs out of our indicator light, runs over to our reed switch to the brown wire. Now coming out of our reed switch, we have a blue wire, and that is ground. So that is the one that we ran out to the common ground. For the cylinder we have on our pedal, you can see that it basically just goes around the sides of it and then screws into place with a plate. Now ours has the adjustable pedal option on this, and when you set this up, what you want to do is you back your pedal all the way back towards your seat. You want that all the way back before you set this up. Now after we got that in place, we went ahead and took our plate. We did have to trim out some of our insulation on the back of our firewall to get that to go to where we can mount that up to bare metal. So just use a utility knife and you can always trace the area of your plate and do that. And then one of the things you want to do when you're setting this up is before you get your plate in place, pull your cable to where it's pretty much straight coming out of your cylinder where you don't have any angles, and then basically mark where that's going to go with either like a paint pen or something. Just kind of get your center, and then that's where you're going to want to line up at least close to that with the center of your plate, and then do your trimming from there. Then we just took our self-tapping screws and then ran the two outside bolts through, and then we set up our center piece where our cable is attached. After you have it all in place and set up, all you have to do is just get your reed switch that is built into it wired up, and then plug in your black line. Just make sure that seats up nice and tight, and that's about it for the install of our cylinder. For our indicator light, we just mounted that right here on the dash, and it'll be a good place where they'll be able to see from their RV camera on the rear of their RV, they'll be able to see that light. We just got that stuck in place there, and we routed that down in beside our pillar. One of the things you want to keep in mind is you want to stay away from any airbags. Another good place to mount these is up behind the mirror. Just make sure you don't mount it over any sensors, and just run that up above your headliner if you can get it to stay. On ours, we couldn't get our wire to stay in there. It just kept falling down, so we had to use this other option here. So after we did that, we got it to run down behind our trim, and then ended up where we could push this back a little bit and get it behind here, and ended up running behind our driver's side kick panel. And after we made all of our connections, we just tucked all of our wires right behind our kick panel. So we came out of our grommet on the driver's side, and we ended up getting it routed right behind where our brake fluid reservoir is, and there's this felt cover right underneath of our firewall. I managed to fish wire our wiring, our positive wire, back in behind this. It's going to protect it and hold it up. And then I ended up coming behind our power control here, or computer area where everything plugs in, and then ran our wire up and over to here. Now after I did that, what I did is we took our wire that comes up from the front, that comes from our breakaway switch. I brought that up and got both of those stripped off. And what I did is our wire that comes from underneath of the dash and our breakaway switch wire, brought both of those together and ran those to our fuse holder. Got that all hooked up and came up here with this and ran it to our positive connection on our battery. Now with all that done, now we have to go get everything done on the motorhome side. Now make sure when you're doing all your wiring and everything that you hold off on putting your fuse into your fuse holder. Make sure all your connections are made before you put that in so you don't cause any shorts. So for now, we're going to have to wait to do all of our tests after we get our RV side hooked up, so we'll go do that now. So we're at our motorhome and we have it up in the air a little bit. Sometimes you can do these with them on the ground, but ours was too low to the ground for us to get under, so we have it on our lifts. Now this is on a Freightliner chassis. Your motorhome may vary in what your model is or what your chassis is, but ours is set up for a Freightliner, so we're going to have what we need to get this installed today. So underneath, we already predetermined our supply line, and we already determined which ones were going to be our metered line. For our next step was going to be mounting our tank, which can be a little tricky, but it's always a good idea to try and go off of existing holes anytime that you can. For our tank, we did find a set of 3 vertical holes back here by a storage area, and we managed to get through those. So we mounted our tank. You just want to make sure that you have this portion of it pointing down, so you're going to want that down. Just make sure you remember that. As long as you get it up there mounted where it's good and solid like we have, that is good to go. Now underneath of our RV, you're going to see the large green line that we have blue tape on. That is going to be our supply line that we will be cutting into and hooking up our connection. Now down below that, you're going to see a black line with tape on that. That is going to be our metered side that we are also going to tap into. Now before we do these, we want to make sure that we get them really clean. So I'm going to take some brake cleaner and just get a rag and make sure I get those really clean before I make my cuts and my connections. Another thing you want to do is make sure that you bleed off the air in your lines for your brakes. That way you don't get a lot of air and debris blowing in your face once you cut into your lines. And the way that you do that is with your RV off. You'll get in there and just pump your brakes, and that'll bleed them off. Just keep pumping them until you'll lose pressure. Now we have both of our lines cleaned up. Now what we want to do now is we're going to have to cut our lines, and I did bleed our brakes. So I did pump our brakes real good until all the pressure was out of them and we had no more air. Now we'll just cut our line. We want to make sure and try and get as straight a cut as we can. And both of those ends look good. We did get those cleaned up really well, so now we should be able to make our connection. We'll go ahead and slide our connector on one end. Let's get that pushed in place. You may need to use both hands once in a while just to make sure you get it seated well. And just work that in, make sure you get it seated. You'll feel it click into place. Now we'll just get the blue tape off of our other line and we'll get ready to clean that up a little more, and then we'll make our cut. Now we repeated the same process of getting this metered line clean and cut, and we went ahead and put on our other fitting. So we went ahead and ran our lines out of our metered and our supply lines, and we ran those towards the back to where we have our tank mounted. Now one of the things that we wanted to make sure and do is keep it away from any moving suspension parts or any exhaust as we made our way back. So it's always best to just try and follow back like an existing wiring harness or lines back to your tank. Now for our larger line, which is the green line up there, that will be our supply line. We just ran that back all the way down our frame, tying off as we go along. As we can see there, we just came back. And then we'll come back down. We drop down to over here where we mounted our tank. And then our supply line, we ran up over this bracket and then we tied off to the side of our meter on the side of our tank, ran that up over up to this fitting that runs right towards our tank. And that was our connection we made there. Now we followed that same path with our other line that is going to run up to just underneath of our tank to this fitting. And when we made our connections, just make sure we push them in real good until they stop. Then I give them a little tug and make sure they don't move around and they don't pull out. And we have our line that comes out of the bottom that's going to run up. And same type of deal with this one. You just want to run it to where it's not near any exhaust and it's not in anything that's moving, and just tie it off as you go along. And we ran this one to the back, to the fitting, to the back of our RV, and that's where we'll make our connection between our RV and our vehicle side. So here we are at the back of our RV, and we have our fitting all installed, and then basically we just drilled through it and used the supply bolts and washers and just got it in place. Now what I like to do when I do these is when I get my vehicle set up, I like to know if it's on the passenger or driver side, and then I'll go ahead and get this set up on the same side as my vehicle so it's a straight shot. Yep. Now one thing to remember, your fittings will come with these covers, and you're going to have one on your vehicle side and your RV side. It's a good idea to keep these so it's going to keep debris from getting in the end of your fittings on both sides. And when you're not using it, I just like to keep them there in place. After you have everything installed for your air brake system on your RV side, you want to go ahead and get it fired up and go ahead and go back through with a little bit of soapy water in a spray bottle and check all your fittings and make sure you don't have any leaks. With that all good and everything working and no leaks, that'll do it for the installation of our Air Force One brake system on our 2025 Ford F-150. I'm Scott with eTrailer, and thanks for watching.